So my name is Gaya Tutani and I'm interested in arts and culture. Currently I work with the art gallery based in Tottenham as a curator, and my main passions are music and history. And following that, this is the reason why I came to this exhibition. And I met Mr. Jatta in June 2014, and he was telling me about his research on the banjo. And my interests are jazz, blues and hip hop. And the conversation just developed from that, and he was telling me the actual roots. And so I felt I needed to sort of find out more. And then recently when I looked into the exhibition, Jane, my colleague, my mentor, we had planned to come actually for this exhibition, and then I thought, how maybe I can link it together and we can find out how we can sort of create into something and actually delve back into the Akonting and really understand what the instrument is about. So joining me is my mentor, Jean Joseph, Janet Tofajan, and Mr. Daniel Jatta.
Well, for the past 25 years, I sacrificed my life, get away from the corporate world, and wanted to understand my culture. And this is why I'm here today. I spent 25 years studying my culture, and I think I have added scholarship to the banjo culture today. And today I am here to look for support and look for people who would understand my work, to see how best we can understand what has happened and the instrument that has given us the gift of joy and is still not known to the world. So hopefully I'll be able to understand or answer some of the questions I'm going to be fired here today. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm grateful to Janet. Since I met her in year 2000, she has been helping to expose my little instrument, and words cannot thank the British Library for the effort they are doing. Thank you very much.
Actually, that leads us very well into the first question I had. I was actually going to ask you, what made you pick the Akonting to be part of the exhibition?
Well, one of the storylines in the exhibition is to do with crossings, and we wanted to talk about the cultural crossings, the cultural expressions that came out of the transatlantic slave trade, that awful moment in history, period of history. And at the same time, we wanted to be able to bring out these stories in a way that a large portion of the population would know, would be familiar somehow with the stories we were trying to tell. Things that we could, that people would be able to say, I know a bit about the banjo, but I didn't know about that part of the history. So we wanted to bring those sorts of stories out. Now, in my own scholarship and connections with scholars, West African musicians, there's been a lot of debate about the origins of the banjo, and lots of theories about the connections with West African lutes, of which there are a large variety through West Africa. In researching it, though, I came across Daniel and his work and felt that we might know about other West African lutes, like the Ngoni, for example. That's one that people often talk about as being connected with the banjo. But the Akonting sort of brings out quite convincing characteristics and playing styles, and really just, it seemed to me that on a very basic level, if you put the Akonting over here and a banjo over there, you can't mistake the similarities. The story jumps out at you. And that's why I thought we'd go with the Akonting.
So I'm going to pass on to you, Mr. Jatta. Why is it important to you to preserve the culture and heritage of the Akonting, following from what Janet has just spoken?
Well, the Akonting to me, whether it is the father of the banjo or not, is my heritage. I cannot live without the Akonting because I know its function in my culture. It is a kind of a network. There is no Jola who would hear the Akonting music and wouldn't be able to understand what it means. The Akonting is not only a musical instrument to the Jola sense of the word. It is a healing instrument. It is a network instrument. It is an instrument that stimulates bravery and stimulates people to walk. Any activity that the Jola is faced with, the Akonting is part of that activity. It has many functions. And it was one of the first artistic works that I found from the Jola culture, from my father. I knew the Akonting when I was 5 years old. I used to sit beside my father playing it. I never knew its value because up till today you go to Gambia and Senegal and Guinea-Bissau. These are the three countries you can find the Akonting. Still it is undervalued because they don't know its function.
So how does that make you feel, realizing that it's been included in the exhibition?
Well, it's a dream I never believed would happen during my lifetime. As I said, London University was one of the first universities I was dreaming to study. Why? Because when I was in high school, we used to have what we call VSO, volunteers from England coming to teach in our high schools. And I remember one of my teachers called Mr. Robinson. I told him, how can I one day enter London University? Because most of my mentors in the Gambia studied in London University. So he told me, maybe one day we'll see it. I said, I don't think I will be able to enter London University. And when I got the opportunity to deliver my little lecture at the university, I couldn't believe that these many years of my dream is today a reality. So I believe I'm so thankful to the staff and especially to Toby Green, who introduced me to Dr. Doran. He came to Gambia twice to study the Gambian music culture, and I was introduced to him by one of the great historians in the country called Hausum Sise. She knows him. And Toby, when he interviewed me, he told me, I will help you, I will try to get you to come and give a small talk to London University. I never believed it would happen.
Okay.
And then in November 2014, I was invited to give a lecture in France, and I used that connection to come here. And since then, I don't think, I love London so much that I don't want to leave.
That actually follows up to the talk that you gave at SOAS, which is the recording online. Jean has also had a listen at that, and so she has a few brief comments that she wants to have maybe to you regarding it and what you thought of the talk that he gave on the Akonting and just the general exhibition itself.
Yeah, I was really impressed to hear the presentation that you gave at SOAS, especially because you talked about the instrument with such passion, and also it covered so many different historical elements connecting the African world, and that really infused me to hear more about what you had to say.
Not to cut you off, but I just want to kind of include Janet on this one. This is just on the 22 years that you've worked here. What really fascinates you about world music, and what is it like working here? What sort of ideas do you pick when you're picking exhibitions? Sorry, maybe I should stop
There's
here.
Lots of questions.
Yeah, I'm going to stop now and let you go on there.
Well, what fascinates me about ethnomusicology, I suppose, I became involved in ethnomusicology. Well, I have a music background, but I became interested in people who make music. So more from the kind of anthropological side. I was interested in the ways that music could tell me and help me to understand how people live, how people work, how communities work. And that's what I continue to find interesting about music. So moving into ethnomusicology, and the sort of anthropology of music, in a sense, has helped me to understand people and communities around the world. For me, there's a great opportunity. Music offers us a great opportunity to understand each other better. That might sound idealistic, I don't know, but I firmly believe that if we get the documents that are encased in musical performances, because that's what they are, oral performances, music performances, those are documents, just like historical documents on pieces of paper. If we get those out, if we get people understanding the messages, I think great things can happen.
I agree with you. Personally, I really have found music quite inspirational in my life, so that's kind of connected. And I remember also when I studied history, so just connecting the two is that's just how I really feel. Music and history have great significance, personally.
That's right, yeah. And you know, just to continue with some of the other questions you brought out there. So I've been here for 22 years, and as an ethnomusicologist, you know, you go through university and you get your PhDs, and the natural progression would be into a university. But when I left South Africa, I'm from South Africa originally, and I came over to the UK, I started doing some voluntary work and short-term projects with my predecessor, who was the same Lucy Duran that Daniel mentioned a little while ago, before I started my postgraduate studies. And it was so inspirational to be surrounded by music from all over the world, on the one hand. On the other hand, to be surrounded by scholarship and by knowledge that was all coming through this office. Everybody seemed to be in touch with that office, and it was, I walked out of there, I remember it very clearly. I went to my friend and I said, that's the job that I want to do. And finished my PhD, and thankfully the job became available. Lucy now teaches at SOAS. I did my PhD at SOAS, and we sort of swapped.
Thank you actually for the tour that you've given us. And thinking about the tour actually, what sort of considerations do you make in terms of the themes, in terms of the works that you're going to exhibit, and the target audience that you have?
We thought with this exhibition that we really wanted to consult widely. We wanted to get people's views. We didn't just want to tell the story as we saw it. We wanted to encompass other ideas, and ideas from our target audience, which in many respects is an audience of West African or Caribbean heritage or background, people in the UK with those backgrounds. And so we began that consultation process, and that did really help us shape the storyline, the narrative that runs through the exhibition. In some senses, it helped shape exactly which objects went in. You know, my meeting with Daniel, for example, was the only way we could get an Akonting in there, because there isn't one in the UK. And that instrument, after the exhibition, will go to the Horniman Museum. So, you know, the knowledge of the Akonting that Daniel has brought in will stay in London, and I'm really happy about that.
I actually want to bring Jean on the tour, because usually this is what we do. Usually after our tour, we have a discussion of what we thought of the exhibition and follow up on the write-up. So I just wanted to ask you, what did you feel of the tour and thoughts from?
I think, you know, as I've said before off camera, I like the way the exhibition was designed and laid out, and the way it flowed. What I think is really good, as well as the people who contributed and the people that you engaged with in order to put the exhibition together, it's really important, especially being the British Library, that the wider audience are able to come and enjoy it and give their feedback. I'd love to know what they thought of the exhibition, and especially of West Africa, which is, you know, you hear about the scripts and writings from all sorts of ancient civilizations, but you don't get this kind of collective of information, intellectual information from any part of the continent put together like this, you know. I love being here. I spend a lot of time here because there's so much to learn, there's so much knowledge, you know, at your disposal. And I always I feel sometimes like I would love to be in the libraries of Timbuktu or Alexandria. I could transport myself off there as well, because that is an important part of learning and knowledge historically, you know. So I think this exhibition is a great opportunity for people to learn and to be aware about the rich history of West Africa, and to understand what they think of it as well. And I think it's great that the British Library have put this exhibition on now. But I also wanted to ask you, why has this exhibition been put on now? I know, you know, you've been, you know, it's an area that is very interesting to you. Why did you all decide to put it on at this particular time?
Yeah. It's actually really long overdue, I think.
Yeah.
I think an exhibition like this from a large UK cultural institution should possibly have been done a long time ago. We have a lot of not always good news that comes out of West Africa, especially at the moment. We wanted to be able to show a large audience that West Africa is very inspirational. It has this long history, some of it good, some of it bad, but there is this explosion of creativity. There's this contribution from West Africa to the wider world, historically as well as now. And we wanted to kind of mark the moment, I suppose. At the end of the exhibition, we talk about since the 2000s and this enormous explosion and excitement around West African literature in all shapes and all forms. And we wanted to somehow mark that and bring that up and boost it within the UK.
And following off the fact that you said long overdue, I'm just thinking back from your talk at SOAS, you spoke of a cultural revolution. I'm just trying to visualize what would that look like, and how do you feel like with your center at in Gambia, you're sort of kind of promoting that?
That's a good question. I believe that the African intellectual, including myself, need to re-educate himself. I can take myself as an example. I was taught out of my culture. Maybe you people who have not experienced it may not understand what I'm talking about. When I went to school, there was nothing I read about myself, my culture, about my people. All the books we read were all printed in England or in other colonized countries that colonized Africa and sent to us. I didn't know anything about what I am. And since I completed my research, I could see the same thing still with the African intellectual, starting from my country. I've sat with many intellectuals who went to school with me, who are graduates, who are handling high positions in the Gambia today, but don't understand me. I'm seen as one of the craziest graduates in the world. Because they couldn't imagine a financial analyst who could have sat down with any company in the world and make money is working with a primitive instrument. That is what they believe. So I believe, and I said it, to set the revolution, I should start it. When I started to know about this culture, I did not just limit it to the theoretical aspect. I said I must know the dance. I must know how to construct the instrument. I must know how to play it. Because if I want to convince the new generation today to learn their Akonting, and they saw me sitting in an office and don't know anything about how to play the instrument, how to construct it, they will not even respect me, what I tell them. But if they see me hold the instrument, play it, construct it, proud to carry it around, then they would imitate me. The cultural revolution is going to be tough because I know the people on top there are not going to welcome most of it. But we must start from the ground root. I must work with the youths. I must work with the children to understand that their culture is meaningful. Their culture can add to their intellectual capacity.
Janet, what do you think actually is the future of the Akonting following this discussion and how it's sort of been developing? And also Mr. Jatta's Centre as well, the way he's teaching it. Do you think there could be links with the British Library now that you've done it, or I'm not sure?
Well, you know, as I said, when we were looking for an example of an Akonting to use in the exhibition in the UK, there wasn't one. There now is one, and there will be one going forward in the Horniman Museum, thanks to Daniel and thanks to the collaboration that we were interested in doing. Alongside that, we didn't have recordings of the Gambian Akonting in the collections here. Daniel has made some recordings which I believe he'll be issuing next year, but we have brought those recordings into the British Library. Anybody can come and listen. In fact, we've just recently had a collaboration with the Songlines magazine, which is a big world music magazine here in the UK, and we did a cover mount CD using recordings from our collections. So there's a recording of Daniel playing the Akonting on that. So, you know, I'm not saying that we can assist in bringing about this revolution, but it's small steps, isn't it? It's about collaboration, it's about people, researchers working together, it's about bridging these gaps and learning from each other. I hope that the exhibition and our work with Daniel has helped in the enterprise that he's obviously very passionate about, that Daniel's passionate about. And I hope that we'll continue to be able to make those recordings and that knowledge and those connections available.
So following that, Mr. Jatta, now that she's just bring that up, I was thinking, are there any particular organizations or people that you think you'd benefit from talking about your center, just bringing that close, so that, you know, whoever's listening to the video, they can have an idea of understanding how they can sort of help you with your center or with workshops or further?
Yeah, as I tell many Gambians, the center has to be first and foremost sponsored by Gambians, either through finance or morally or academically, because the center is not only going to work on teaching people how to play the Akonting. The center, for the first time in the whole Africa, is going to start teaching children how do we use our knowledge to survive. So you find out that the school is not only going to teach music, we are going to bring out a comprehensive knowledge, hands-on. We are not going to use textbooks, we are not going to use writing. The people must use their mental capacity to remember things. If you want to write, you can write, but the school will not enforce writing.
Okay. Actually, following from that, Jim, do you have anything to add? Because I know we always talk about this sort of interesting mix of different types of education and workshops that we sort of facilitate with children.
It's very, very close to the sort of thing that I like to do, which I call enabling. It's a simple word, but it's just the sort of workshops that I like to do, which are very hands-on, and they're so very inspirational because they come from the participants and they come from the leaders, and it's an experiential type of learning, and it is very much that sort of thing. It's not necessarily about academics, it's more sort of vocational, intuitive type of learning, and that's the sort of thing that I would, I'd really like to talk to you more about, in terms of where you want to go forward. I was going to ask one very last question, but I think I don't need to, because it says I ask what next for the Akonting and its champion, and you've answered it more or less.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to close there, but I just want to really thank Janet for giving us the tour. I'm sure we'll definitely...
Thank you very much.
Thank you, that was much appreciated. I'm sure we'll be coming back again for it to really kind of engage with it and bring other people and educate them about that.